Smart 24, driving business.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying tuned in Smart 24 TV, where we drive your business. Today we are talking public procurement and especially the participation of women. Now, the PPDA Act 2003 was just amended just a few months ago, not even years, and subsequently it was assented to by the President in 2021. And was actually amended to, the section that was amended was 59B, which Mr. Ronald clearly mentioned about the special interest groups that were to receive at least 30% of the cake from public procurement. Now, Madam Charity, you are still mentioning the fact that despite these amendments, we still have challenges of policy, structural and operational challenges that are currently hindering women especially and other special interest groups. Maybe you can pick it up from there and we get to look into the amendments if they have actually had an impact so far.
Okay. Thank you, Anthony. Speaking about the policy challenges, which I talked about, that Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania have working policies which our friends in Rwanda and Ethiopia do not actually have. However, for our policies in Uganda, Kenya and Tanzania need to be enhanced by having legal definitions of what they mean by, for example, women-led businesses. And when they talk about a reservation scheme, say, of 30%, these need to be very specific and say of the 30%, probably maybe 20 or 15 or 1% is going to the women, because the special interest groups are lumped up. Yeah, and women per statistics are much more than the men. So when you give us only 30, me inclusive, I think you are being very unfair and you'll definitely leave us behind. Going into the structural barriers, these stemmed from how procurement authorities and entities are actually running about their businesses, especially if you're to relate it to promoting participation of women in public procurement. We found that one of the barriers is that the data that is being collected, or the data about companies that is being collected or registered that are doing business with government, is actually not gender desegregated. So it is difficult to say that actually this company that is bidding or has won a tender belongs or is owned, or the beneficial owner is a woman. So we found that as a very big gap, because once you don't have the data, then you cannot design specific programs that are aimed at promoting participation of these special interest groups. We found that corruption and discrimination is very high. And corruption was in form of bribes. Bribes were in kind and in cash. More than 40% of the women interviewed agreed that they had been asked for something. Some were actually asked to pay money before they could win a contract, or even before they could get paid for the contracts they had actually serviced. And we also found that actually contracts are being sexualized, like asking for sexual favors from women to be able to win contracts. And the other barrier is that there's limited access to information. And the women out there actually don't know the opportunities that are available for them. We are here, Ronald is talking about the special reservation schemes in public procurement, he's talking about public procurement, I'm talking about access to information. But the beneficiaries, who are my friends, who are my neighbors, the fellow women, my mother in the village, do not know about this information. They don't know that actually these opportunities exist. Recently, we learned that actually the Ministry of Gender, especially the Department on Gender and Culture, they have specific schemes and programs designed for women to tap into. But this information is within the hands of a few. The women don't know about this. Then access to, limited access to credit was also another barrier. Women are not able to bid for bigger contracts. They are not able to service them because they cannot access loans from financial institutions. There is also delayed payments in cases where contracts have been serviced. Delayed payments have affected them to be able to reinvest into the businesses and serve again. All these have been barriers. And also, most importantly, before I forget it, is the complexity of the bidding documents. The bidding, I personally, I cannot tell you that I understand those documents. Maybe Ronald does. They are so huge that
It's
by the
scary.
time, and scary, by the time you read the conditions, then read the safety, then
given
read, you've given up. You don't know where to start from. So what women do is that they hire the so-called experts to put these bid documents together. These people are just making money. They make mistakes. They don't guarantee you're winning or not winning. So there is need to enhance that capacity among the women. Then for the social and culture, it is the normal, the gender roles. Majority of women will have to create time to go back home and prepare the children, prepare the meals, prepare their husbands. So in their schedule, they have less time to actually concentrate and learn more and network about these businesses. So also these gender roles and the culture around is that women in most societies, they don't own land. And we know that land is one of the most important collaterals that one can use to develop themselves through using it to access finance. So such hindrances have actually limited them to doing the small jobs. There are some entities in Uganda here that have gone ahead to design specific groups, but when you listen to the story, they'll say, women have been reserved to have contracts to do with beautifying the city, to supply food. Like, really? I also want a contract to construct a road, Kampala Road, 20 kilometers.
Flyover.
Why? Yeah, the flyover. Why can it not come to me? Why should I be kept to only supplying uniforms and beautifying the city?
Interesting. Interesting there, Ms. Charity. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Ronald, you have a very huge role here to play. I don't know if you'll handle all this, but I think Madam Charity really plays a very important role here in informing us of what's really happening on ground. First of all, ordinarily, why would micro procurement of certain thresholds, say below 1 million, require all these things? Maybe 3 years bank, 6 months bank statements, and you have a certificate of incorporation, and then you have 3 years of audited reports, and you have trading licenses. It's so many requirements.
Yes.
Yet you're saying in the PPDA Act amendment, you're making it more inclusive. You want the vulnerables to be included. Are these amendments really reaching out to the target people, the target groups, or they're actually just looking at the surface of the problem?
Okay, thank you. And again, I think this is very interesting for us to be able to have a discussion on these issues. If I am to start at that very point on requirements being stringent, the requirements usually are parallel to to the need. If I need to put up a classroom block, the requirements will not be as stringent as though I needed to put up perhaps a flyover or a dam, a bridge. If the requirements for someone to supply me stationery are the same as the requirements for someone to supply me a facility or a machine that transforms raw materials from one state to another, and the requirements are the same, then there will be a problem there. And procurement is usually tailored to the need. So the requirements are usually tailored to the need. If the complexity of a procurement is high and the risk is high, I'm going to guard myself as an entity. I'm going to require performance security from you so that in case you do not perform, I have a safe place to go back to. I can get your performance security, go to your bank, cash it, and I'm protected. And the taxpayer's money is protected. If I need a consultant to do a complex project, the experience requirements are definitely going to be so high, you know? And this will now be regardless of whether the contractor is male, female, or a youth. If the project is complex, what you need is a sophisticated person to handle the job. So usually it is not a one fit for all procurements in terms of requirements. Usually the buying entity has the discretion, and in fact this is not something within the law. It is within the discretion of the buying institution because they have that mandate. If I'm going to buy airtime for this talk show, I know what I will need, and there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. What is the best TV around the country? Smart TV, you know. So I will know, and the requirements will actually not be as huge. And so we cannot, in fact, even tie it in the law and say that this is what you must ask for. Make it too many, or make the things too many to make people get tired. No. We leave it open, so depending on the complexity and the risk associated, so are the requirements. And
you're saying women are less sophisticated. Is that?
And what I'm simply saying,
yes.
What I'm simply saying is to the question of capacity. When you look around and you assess capacity, because many times you shall ask, what are women in this country doing in terms of manufacturing, in terms of services, in terms of supplies? What are they doing best? And when we compare the data and we compare the statistics, you will find that actually most women are in services that have directed them in certain offerings. So you will find more women in catering, you will find more women in cleaning, you will find very few women in construction.
That is where you have pushed.
You will find few women taking on the risks to do mega consultancies. You want a consultancy, all the applications you're going to receive, even before you press the button of reserving the requirement for women, you will see that most of the applications that are coming are for a certain gender.
But do we agree, Mr. Ronald, that there are women actually doing these big things?
We do.
And those women deserve a little bit extra attention, a little bit extra care, a little bit more provision in the law, so that they can bring out their gifts to inspire more women. Because if they are more than us, the men, and they could revolutionize this country if we transformed their livelihoods, if they took part in the big projects, don't we have to actually pay more attention to those few that are available?
I may agree with you, Anthony. And again, in fact, the direction government is taking is in agreement that women need to be supported. But let me ask you, if you want to construct your house, your retirement home, a basic home that you want to maybe at the age of 65 go to and relax and stay there for the rest of your life. If you're going to live to 100 years, stay there peacefully, and nothing is going to disturb you. And one person brings their offer and says, I have been doing houses for the last 6 months. Please give me your monies. Let me build for you this house. Regardless of whether this person is man or woman. And another person tells you, this is what I've been able to do for the last 16 years. I've constructed houses. In fact, you can see all the houses. You can go and get recommendations from these people. You will definitely want to go with the safer option, because you want your investment, your retirement home, to be safeguarded. But that said, government, I think in public procurement in Uganda, the story started way back in 2014, when government thought that it was important to reserve certain procurements for Ugandans. And in 2014, the discussion was for all Ugandans, what we may refer to as local providers, and in fact, local content. So we were looking around and saying, what are Ugandans doing that we are spending money on and resources on? Can we stop sending that money out and give it to the Ugandans that are doing those services, the Ugandans that have set up facilities here and they are manufacturing or assembling and employing so many people and actually paying a lot of taxes to URA and putting a lot of money in the fund, the NSSF? Can we start giving this money to those people? The people doing furniture here, the people doing electricity cables, the companies that have set up here to manufacture medicines, the companies that have set up here to do uniforms, and they have invested in a lot of machinery. So the discussion in 2014 was at that scale. But the procurement law is a procedure and is a business law. So many times you'll find that it will now and again require to be updated, to move to the times and to the requirements of the Ugandan citizen. And so in 2021, I think that's just about 2 years ago, specifically on 2nd of June 2021, the law was amended and the president on that date assented to it, and it took effect, and a provision specifically under section 59(2)(b) added a provision on the promotion of the participation of special interest groups in public procurement. So to the effect that if we have been seeing few women participating, we should have provisions for women to be attracted, to be supported, to be promoted, to participate more in these areas where actually government is spending the money and the resources. And so under that provision that generalized special interest groups to mean women, youth, and people with disabilities, was to the effect that it would require the concerned institutions, and these being the PPDA, working with the Ministry of Finance, to operationalize that provision and now unpack it and break it down. And what the PPDA has embarked on, or actually has already done, is that we have come up with a guideline that has unpacked what kinds of procurements can be reserved for women. And again, that is what takes me back to what Charity was talking about, that you'll find that it's only cleaning services, catering services, beautification of the city that will be reserved to women. But we want to, in this reservation scheme or this reservation guideline, point to areas where government can support women. We do not want to simply put areas in those documents which are not going to be able to be operationalized, or we won't be able to implement. You will reserve areas where women are actually not interested. Women are not putting money. Women are not setting up businesses in that area. You will say consultancies, for example, to develop strategies in Uganda should all go to women. And unfortunately, you will find that perhaps women are not interested there. They are interested in doing consultancies on family affairs or global issues.
That is not
so
true.
we definitely do not want to have redundant provisions. And we are very close when it comes to working. We are closely working with the National Women Council. We are working with women associations, and we are bringing people in the debate. And we want to, by the time, perhaps towards the end of this financial year, our plan and our roadmap to have this guideline out was in this financial year. But of course, we have to consult many people, and people give us these ideas which we cannot dispel or refuse or turn down, but rather we have to refine them and study them and then find a point that is agreeable and a point that is reasonable, that can be tied down, so that we do not risk our economy, we do not risk our procurement structures, and we do not risk accounting officers' roles by putting in the law things that may not be workable. So as I conclude on this point specifically, in that specific guideline that is going to operationalize the provision under section 59B2, we want to have these areas clearly mapped out to the extent that we can. We want to have procedural steps that perhaps women-led businesses can be exempt. For example, if someone has to pay bidding fees, non-refundable bidding fees of, let's say, 100,000 shillings, or to furnish a bid security, which is usually 2% of the estimated value of the procurement for them to participate in the process, we want to find provisions to say, can we have a commitment from these women-led businesses in writing, so that we do not bother them with furnishing us with these financial instruments. And then definitely we are putting up mechanisms on how we can make it much more smoother. We want to simplify the documents, like Charity has mentioned. Simplify these documents. Unfortunately, the problem is not only for women when it comes to documents. Many times Ugandans and most people are not fans of reading. You will give a person a 3-pager and they will say, no, I cannot deal. For those that have participated in public procurement, when they participate one, 2, 3, or 4 times, it becomes normal. They will know that this document, some of the provisions are general terms. Some of those provisions, you will actually find that you, in a document of about 15 pages, you are only filling out like 3 or 2 pages. The rest of the terms are to protect government and to protect you as a provider. They are just general terms, but many times...
Thank you, Mr. Ronald, there. I think Madam Charity has a very wonderful comeback on all those points, but we have to take a very short break right here, ladies and gentlemen. We are still talking public procurement, and especially focusing on the participation of women and other marginalized groups. And Mr. Ronald's argument is women probably don't read enough, they don't have enough, the businesses probably are not of the worthy size to see that they participate in the big projects of government. Probably has talked about experience, 16 years and 6 months, but would all these points be relevant to all? And Ms. Charity, you're going to respond to that. But also when we return, there's the life cycle costing in terms of procurement. We've seen so many government projects at a standstill, so many infrastructure projects. We've seen cars or vehicles dilapidated in government backyards, and no one takes care of this. How are you accounting for this as PPTA? My name is Anthony. We return shortly. Stay with us.